On this episode of the Esports Meta, talked about it before where these esport leagues are unsustainable.
I think it's game over for him. I think Liquid's just going to destroy everybody.
Utility and speed is back in.
Oh, but now you're taking more shit away from the player.
And I think that's what T-Pain's Global Gaming League is trying to do. Hello, welcome to the Esports Meta, your place for video game news and competition. My name is Billy Sims, here to bring you a week full of a ton of video game news and excitement. Today, we've got Niantic preparing to sell Pokemon Go for billions with a B. We'll see what's going on with that. Overwatch AMA with the devs revealed that Counterwatch meta is down 25%. A bit surprising and a bit more than maybe we all were expecting. Then we got to go fast in Goblin Mode because the new raid in World of Warcraft is going live and the Race to World First is coming up quick. Then last but not least, it's Amalgam Meta. Gotta say it, I'm sure we're all surprised at the quick change there, but here we are. We got a lot to cover today, and those are just some of the topics. But to talk about it, I need to talk with you guys. Thanks for joining us. This is the Esports Meta. You can find us everywhere on social media at the Esports Meta. This is a conversation because we're gamers just like you. So hit us up, drop a message in the chat, come over to our social media, make a comment, make fun of us. We like to have a good time, so we'd expect it from you guys too. So hang out, have some fun. We appreciate it. But this is the podcast that me and Nick are going to be talking about. And to talk with Nick, I actually have to bring Nick in here. A little grumpy pants himself. Nicholas Layton, how you doing today?
Chilling, dude. Apparently I'm grumpy.
I mean, it's hard to argue that cut would come in and you're just kind of like focused. I know you're locking in. You got your beanie on, you got your headset on. You're just locking in for the podcast.
Yes, 100% locked in. All
right, yeah, man.
No,
it just looked a little boring. Looked a little RBF to me, a little resting bitch face. But just
thanks,
trying to,
man. Thanks.
Loosen up a little bit, have some fun as we get started, man. It's been a week of video games and stuff. What have you been up to? Have you been playing mostly League this week, or have you ventured into some of the other stuff?
No, I've mostly been playing League Magic. A friend convinced me to possibly play WoW again for a little bit for PvP, but
interesting.
Who knows if that's going to pan out? If I'm actually going to play it or not, I might just pay $15 to Blizzard to just sit there and not play
it. Run around Stormwind in a circle, right?
No, just probably won't even log on.
It is a good time to check stuff out because 11.1 patch has been pretty big. I've been playing a bit of that, getting ready for the raid and everything. I'm not going to be doing anything serious there, but it's been fun kind of going in and the casual stuff I like to do with WoW. Otherwise, yeah, man, I've been playing some Marvel Rivals ranked. I've been clobbering noobs with the thing, trying to fly high with the Human Torch. Not doing so well with the Human Torch, but man, I'm making things happen with the thing.
I'm very happy for you. How's it going though? Like, did you finish your promos? You got a rank yet? Do you have something you want to share with the class? You got a little bit higher than bronze. You get that Sylvia.
I got knocked down from plat into like silver, but I'm back into gold. Nothing spectacular, just playing the game, but I'm very interested in that sense too, because they've had a big problem with player distribution in Marvel Rivals, the rank stuff, where like 80% of people who've logged in and played rank have been like just bronze level stuff. And usually it's more of a bell curve like we've talked about before, but for some reason Marvel Rivals still new, haven't gotten it kind of ironed out. It's mostly distributed towards bronze. Maybe it's players who are just fresh to the game and stuff, but being gold isn't anything to call home about, but it's still having a pretty good time playing the new character, punching people in the face with the rock fists.
Oh, very happy for you, man. Good. Glad it's working out.
It's definitely doing something. And, with that, I think it's time we do something, get into some of these stories. And our first story today, something we held off from talking about last week, but wanted to kind of bring it up again because it is a really interesting kind of rabbit hole to go down to. Our first story here tonight is going to be talking about Pokemon Go maker Niantic. Forgot their name for a second. Pokemon Go maker Niantic nears a $3.5 billion deal to sell games unit. They're looking to sell Pokemon Go to Scopely. This is an article that I found in Bloomberg the other day. I'm circumventing some of the inhibitors to read the article, but here we are. Niantic is the company who's made Pokemon Go, the AR phone mobile game. That game has been in a competitive mode / a standby mode. Some players and content creators would argue for a while. So it's kind of interesting to see that a brand like Scopely, makers of Monopoly Go, Marvel Strike Force, I believe, and they have a bunch of other mobile titles, have interest in something like this with Niantic. They are a Saudi-owned company. I believe it's part of that effort, like we saw with the Esports World Cup overall. But Nick, this is a huge amount of money for a game that's kind of it's the game pulls cash, it pulls players, but it's definitely past its peak. You know, what are your thoughts when you see something like this, where Scopely is eyeing a deal for $3.5 billion to buy Pokemon Go from Niantic? You might be muted there.
Oh,
you might be
sweet.
choosing
I just
not
got
to
hit with
talk.
a phone call.
All right, we're going to take a look at this article while Nick takes that important call. A deal could be announced in the coming weeks, so this is still pretty speculative news from about a week ago. The price being discussed currently from sources about $3.5 billion. Any agreement would involve the Pokemon title as well as the other mobile games. Apparently, Niantic tried to make what's it called? They tried to make a Harry Potter world, and I think they try to have done one or two other games with already name brand IPs overall. But generally speaking, this stuff hasn't been fully, successful as Pokemon Go has been. Scopely, owned by Savvy Games Group, subsidiary of Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is the Saudi Crown Prince, which is the same team that funds Falcon Esports, I think that owns the Face It League, and then has funded and created the Esports World Cup. So, Nick, I believe you're back and you're with us on that. I was just talking how this a little bit more details of what this deal is and involves and means, especially with Niantic having a bunch of other failures, kind of having that faux pas where they've announced they're more of an AR mapping organization than they are of a Pokemon game company or a game company overall. So, I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are here.
I wouldn't buy that game, and they probably have they probably make a ton of their money actually selling information based on everybody going everywhere and doing everything like that. But hey, man, be tracked in your own app. It's a trash ass Pokemon game as far as I'm concerned. I never had fun with just swiping. It was kind of cool catching Pokemon in the beginning, but the battling sucks. I don't even know if there's trading. So, and it felt too limited, but hey, if they want to buy it for $3.5 billion, go ahead. It probably has some unique fringe cases where you could use the data or the actual app itself for something that's not, I don't want to say intended, but something that you're not even thinking about. The data itself could probably be used.
Well, that's a lot of what recently was revealed with Niantic. They make a ton of money with Pokemon Go as it is. It does have a lot of microtransactions. They have increased the microtransactions with some passes, some tasks and paid tasks and research, etc. The in-game research is called. They have increased the volume they've put out for $1, and they've increased that price to $2. But that's happening once a week, twice or 3 times a month at least. So there's been a large volume of revenue coming for Pokemon Go and Niantic, but Niantic was sort of messing around in the background. They were taking that AR information, people having their phones in their pockets, walking around, they were mapping everything. and they kind of discussed how they're an AR map company looking for applications of that information and data elsewhere. I think that's an interesting point with that. Maybe Scopely and then the Saudi-backed team behind Scopely is also looking at that. But I think an interesting part might be it might be something else adjacent, right? If they have a Pokemon title under their inventory per se, then that's like another step in legitimacy. That's another thing they can kind of float. It is in competition across the world. They can push it into Esports World Cup easier. Maybe they have a pivot point for all the other Pokemon competitions stuff to bring it to the Esports World Cup through this sort of deal. Like it might be some sort of political move, and that's going to be floated and funded. So they're not going to really mind that it's at a loss per se, which is something that they've allegedly done with the Premier League in soccer, buying, a soccer team there and operating at a loss, but then kind of working within the bounds of the rules to make it seem like there's not really a loss, because then they basically split the difference. They pay for it themselves through third-party business people, etc. Through the terms and agreement ads, the things that are allowed to do it. So this could be another way for them to kind of manage that. They already have a Marvel title. They already have that connection to like Disney. They already have a Monopoly Go title that's really successful under Scopely. So Pokemon might be the next sort of like bucket list political move there.
I mean, yeah, you said it yourself, right? Pokemon is quite the name, just in general. But as I said, like, not for me. And I don't know how you could use like the information besides like advertisements and stuff like that. But I'd be interested to see if they have to do anything with like the Pokemon company itself. Like, are they allowed to just sell off their game like that? I know it's not Nintendo's game or anything like that, but it is like the IP. Like, there's a lot of, like, I play Magic the Gathering online, right? And like, as soon as the new company Dawnbreak came on, there's a lot of different like IP stuff that they have to like deal with. So like the certain things that come out in the new Pokemon, new Magic sets and stuff like that, they don't always make it there like immediately. And there's always something to like talk about. So who knows if there's a paycheck in store for the Pokemon company based on this, like 3.5, like $1.5 billion goes to the Pokemon company.
Right. And they've been probably getting paid for a while through that license already. Niantic being the company that's essentially operating an AR Pokemon game for Pokemon. And like, that's not unusual. I know we just saw Pokemon Day and they announced some main series games from Game Freak, like the main series developer. But then there's a lot of other developers doing a lot of other things that they license out. And with how litigious Nintendo and Pokemon tend to be elsewhere, I can't imagine that they wouldn't have a say in who the license goes to and how, etc. But this might be a lucrative deal where, Scopely and the public fund could elevate and look pretty delicious for Nintendo, or, especially with that family friendly front, right? Like, we complain about how Nintendo sells $60, $40 games 6 years after the game came out. But part of that is because of that branding, and part of that is that message of like, hey, we're family friendly, we're consistent products, like, here you go. So maybe that's the beneficial thing that's looking. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. $3.5 billion is a very, 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 very large amount of money for any single game, let alone a developer of multiple games. But we'll see how that goes. Nick, how about this? Actually, I know this is not really, Pokemon Go is not really your game. It's not your specific kind of vibe and stuff, but with your sentiment, recently I've been playing Pokemon Go and I've noticed that there's been a lot of UI changes, a lot of like mechanic updates. They're reworking things essentially that players have complained about over time, but then have finally done. I think the game is like, 2016, for 9 years old, coming 9-10 years old. And they're updating this stuff within the last year or so. For your own speculation as somebody who's more cynical on Pokemon Go, do you feel like that is like a kind of a big signal that they're preparing to sell, they're preparing to do away, or they're preparing for something else essentially? Because it's been 9 years of like not really doing that, and then all of a sudden it feels like, hey, here's a battle pass, here's a new UI for the Pokedex, here's a new raid system essentially. Like, what's your read on something like that part?
I don't know, man. The new people coming in would have to like revamp some stuff to get like new players in general. Like, I really don't know how, besides the fact that like they've ripped off their game previous to Pokemon Go. It's literally just like the exact same game, just with a Pokemon skin on it, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a dumbed down version of Pokemon, like, and it like typing half the time, like I don't know. I just think the game's just like straight booty. I thought it was like really, really cool, the beginning part, but like a lot of the frustrations that Pokemon Go gives you, it detracts away from the fun part of collecting Pokemon. Like, just saying like, yeah, man, if you want that Pokemon, you better take your ass to Japan. You better go there. And yeah, that's right. In that fucking mountain right over there underneath that leaf, there's that one Pokemon that only Japanese can get. Like, region locking Pokemon, not making it like more condensed in areas, and like, I'm not gonna say like counties, but like for a state, like you don't even travel your state to get like a lot of Pokemon. Like, I don't know. It just seems like a real, like, a lot of the frustrations they never worked on. They didn't give a shit. They just like waited for whales to just boost their numbers, which like worked because like it's a mobile game, man. It's gonna make money. I don't know. People spend money on mobile games. Like,
yeah,
I don't. But like, it's hard for me to spend money on stuff that I know. Like, it literally just feels like a waste of time. But that's me.
well, that's
no hate towards people who really enjoy the game, but I was saying, like, that's just me. Like,
that's definitely something that we've seen can be a problem when the game disappears, right? You essentially lose all that digital assets that you owned, which you don't really own. But yeah, they didn't really work on a lot of frustrations. There's a lot of player frustrations. They do have these annual events, Pokemon Go Fest, around the world. They've got a couple other ones. So they have kind of like done minor things generally to up the profit line, get people in the door, kind of keep retention. But like nothing that's, you're right, nothing that's like made the quality of life like that much
people have switches
better.
though. These people have switches though. Like, sell me on Pokemon Go when you could just play the regular Pokemon game, and don't tell me you don't have a Switch. Because if you're playing Pokemon Go hardcore, I know for a fact, like, there's a good amount of people like that grandpa who got 16 different devices running at one time while he goes around the city on an e-bike or something, right? Like, that exists. But for the most part, most people who play Pokemon Go habitually have a Switch and can play Pokemon. So I don't, besides like the fact that you can get instant gratification with money, like, and that's like, that's weird. Like, you can do that in the games. Like, you're just not spending money. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I really don't see the pull for it. And like how people are spending money now that like it's hitting me. Like, holy shit. Like, I know you guys all have Switches. Like, that's what hit me. That's what made me just like go on this tirade. Was that like, I know for a fact that they have, like, you have a Switch. Like, I what game improvements could they make that doesn't make you go like, yeah, shit, I should just go play? like the new, like, Let's Go Pikachu is a better game than.
I'm not going to sit there and sort of defend, defend why you should play Pokemon Go over something on the Switch. And I think you make a really fair point with that, generally speaking, but it is like another just avenue for things. And that's, people like their mobile games, etc. But, my focus too with this is that they have been trying to make these UI experiences a little bit better, almost like they're polishing the package. And in my corporate experience, working in marketing, working with bands and music industry as well, like when people are positioning like that, when a product is getting polished up, when the UI experience is getting polished up, it really feels like they're kind of honing in, making it look good for. It's like washing the car before you're about to sell it on Craigslist, basically. That's the vibe I've gotten from that. And it's interesting that this came through. And we'll see if the $3.5 billion actually makes it through. And maybe we'll know by August when EWC Esports World Cup hits and when Pokemon World Championship happens in Anaheim, which, real quick, running over those details, that's when we are expecting Pokemon Go, as well as Pokemon Unite, the card game and the video game, to be competing at the Worlds in Anaheim. They have the launch page here with all the details, full weekend. Last year was in Honolulu. I do appreciate the aesthetic right now. This is going to be Blizzard neck of the woods in Anaheim, right? The arenas, the convention center down there in California, SoCal. So definitely worth checking out, looking forward to. We'll see if that deal for $3.5 billion gets solidified by then, if it's dropped, if it's moved on to another taker, perhaps. But, you know, a lot to come before then. Nick, we've got another story to come up right now if you're ready to move into Apex Legends.
Go for it. Let's do it.
All right. This was actually an article. This is actually an article you sent me over last week, and we were talking about a little bit of the rumor mill. So we're not substantiating it, but through Dextero, it was reported that Apex Legends Pro is claiming that ALGS, the esports league, is shutting down in 2026 as the pro scene dries up. Reasoning and thought behind this was sweet. One of the strongest Apex Legend pros in the game, storied history, stepped away from pro play, and he's claiming that pro play wasn't financially viable for himself, and that his scene is likely dwindling overall. That I think he claims later on that about the esports industry as a whole, which is stuff we talk about. But where is the quote here? I think, let me try to find this, but generally speaking, this pro player was saying he made more money from playing poker online or in tournaments than he did from his Apex Legends pro play in esports. That could be a winning thing. I don't know his record. I'm not familiar with Sweets, but that's also could just be indicative of like the grand vision of an unsustainable esport that, you know, we're kind of seeing the back end of. So, you know, with this news, Nick, and with like this pro player and knowing a bit of Apex, Nick, what's your thoughts here? What do you see as far as Apex Legends doing as far as an esports goes in the future, the next 2 years?
I feel like all team esports are getting like really, really hurt just in general. Like it's really hard to maintain a roster paying everybody like certain amounts of money, especially if some of them are like you know, superstars in the game itself. So, and I mean with the payouts, like I don't really remember exactly what the Apex Legends payouts are, but like look who owns this game. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really easy to kill like esports just in general. You know, low pay, like literally just like low payout, constantly worrying about like and I get that these companies like need to make money, but you know, just burn through all the possible resources of esports right now, and we won't have esports in the future. Like we'll stop doing esports, and we're going to be flying fucking drones as a competition. like that's what everybody's going to be doing. Like, fuck it, I'm just going to race drones with my GoPro on top of it because that's the closest thing to a competitive video game I could possibly play. Like,
right.
I don't know.
I kind of see this as like not surprising if it's true. Right, like you said, we've talked about it before, where these esport leagues are somewhat unsustainable. That you have companies like EA or Respawn, then Blizzard and Riot. They kind of choke the life out of the esport, squeezing the stone for blood, squeezing for money, essentially. And like, there's ways that everybody can win. And like, you go something as far as Nintendo, where they kind of ignore the pro scene and esports scene, but almost to a detriment. And then they tighten their grip the opposite direction and over control it. It's definitely not in the same foundational as conservative sports, especially now, NFL, NHL, NBA kind of stuff. But I do see like what Los Ratones is doing, what T-Pain is doing with the Global Gaming League, what Moist Critical and Ludwig with what is it, Shopify Rebellion, formerly Moist Esports, merging to Shopify Rebellion. Like these content creators, Double Lift coming in, former pro into a content sort of team. Like the hours to play to make it pro is insane. And like it's almost like working a restaurant job where it's like that minimal wage that you're already getting is just kind of thinned out even further because your hours are just insane. And it's great if you're no sweating the game, but if you know, no lifing, all just sweating the game on like every day, all day, forever. But like the second you want to relax, go to the gym, it becomes hard to do any sort of like touch grass stuff essentially. I'm not surprised by this. I do imagine that they would keep this esport, but it would probably move into like something what Overwatch did, you know, Blizzard kind of being the model for a big company making that pivot of a league into a different league that's more community focused rather than organization focused. Do you think it's a big swing or big stretch to have maybe like a T-Pain coming in, or even like organizations like Team Liquid or even Echo or something coming in where they like pick up players that just compete and they're able to kind of move around? Or do you think it's just too far gone where like the prize pools are just not going to be there because it's lost its pretty girl status, right? It's like, you know, the favored game right now.
I don't know. Like just think about this real quick. Like just like run some numbers just real quick. Okay. An average pro player probably plays like, not plays, but like interacts with their job of the game probably like 12 hours a day. Like real talk, like 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, right? Like it's pretty brutal, right? All right, let's say that motherfucker
Definitely.
makes $70,000 a year, right? Just so we're clear, if he works 50 weeks, sure, like, you know, they do work like less in general, right? But like if you were to take this as like an average job and to say like he doesn't still practice in the off time and stuff like that, he still does this stuff, he still grinds, he still has to have Smurf accounts, stuff like that he has to hide stuff on, and like, and this is like League, but like other games also do this, right? Just do that real quick, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for 50 weeks. You get 3,600 hours. Okay. If you make $70,000 a year, $70,000 a year, that's pretty decent, right? Play video games, you get $70,000 a year. That's $19.50 an hour. Fuck out of here. Like, dude, I say it all the time, man. These prize pools are pitiful. Like the companies themselves, like owning their own esport for the game that they actually make is probably like a pretty big stranglehold on esports in general. Like they probably shouldn't have. I mean, but you know, I don't know, man. It feels like they just they don't actually want esports. Most of them, like especially like EA. EA is not going to. It doesn't really care about you know. Anyway,
Well, I'm sure that's also a decision made by just grumpy. I'm sure that's also a decision made by accountants and lawyers too, like something, you know, the sentiment that way, which we've seen be the thing that's driving most of video games recently, like last 10, 15 plus years. It is a billion dollar company, billions upon $1 billion industry, generally speaking as well. So like, naturally that's going to happen. People are going to follow and chase the money. And that's kind of what happened with esports, where you had the grifters or like the smooth talkers, like, hey, we're going to definitely...
The fan base lets this shit slide, bro. Like we see it in real time with Marvel Rivals right now. Watch, like they're going to give a shit about esports, bro. Like just watch, like look at Blizzard trying to make a good comeback, right? Just watch. The same shit happens every time because the fan base literally will just like suckle at the teat, right? The olive god's just sitting there, and they're not going to hold them like accountable to like a standard of like, you know, hey, we want to have like esports, but most of the player base probably doesn't want to have esports for like Marvel Rivals, right? So like, who cares? I I don't know. Just anyway,
Yeah.
let's get on to a positive topic.
Well, that's like the crazy part with it too, because like you do want to show the heights of a game, right? The skill level. You want a carrot per se too, and like, are we kind of dangling too much carrot with the esport mentality where so you can live off of playing video games? And it's like, that is possible, that is doable. I was just watching about the D&D economy, essentially, and how all the creators around it, and it thrives because of the open license that they did in the 90s, because D&D was failing, and that's when Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro bought it, right? Like, subsequently Wizards of the Coast and then Hasbro bought Wizards of the Coast, but then 2 years ago they kind of try to shift around and take away that avenue because they smelt money. They were like, oh, let's get a piece of this. When it's such a weird balance, but I do think that it could be there. And something like Apex Legends has shown a huge skill level. It's a great game, a great shooter, a very competitive minded as well. So like, yeah, like it does then come down to the question of what is this developer of the game going to do for it? Or are they just going to cut it loose and let it ride? Like we saw with Multiverses after less than a year. But then the community is going to come in and have these like cult tournaments, these secret online ones, these backroom at a video game store or a card store tournaments that is going to love, and people are going to want to find it and play it. Is Apex going to become that? I don't know. I really don't know. But this is an interesting rumor from a pro player's point of view. Like, they're in the thick of it. They decided to cut out. And we've seen that happen before. I do recall, and before, like, I'll bring you to your last thoughts in just a moment, Nick. Sinatra was a very famous Overwatch player. He won MVP at the end of Goats Meta when they won the championship. I think we went to that championship in might have been Philly, but either way, famously, he just said, "See you later. I'm going to play Valorant." He was a Valorant pro for a little bit. Guess what? He's not a Valorant pro anymore. I'm pretty sure he's trying to be a Marvel Rivals pro. And like, I think that's also the life. That's also the hustle. You're going to be jumping from game to game, but just as much as it's the players having to like set in stone what they want and stand strong for it, show with actual dollars in action. Maybe it's also then the companies like, making that enticing, having that compromise, working together to make a good game together kind of thing. So yeah, Nick, your thoughts with, on that as far as pro plays and jumping around in esports.
Final thoughts on it would be, I think single player competitive games are stronger in the esports space. And I think that we should probably that it would be a lot more fun to watch esports as if it was like a game show from like the 90s. Like Double Dare or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like not really, but like there's like two teams that are just playing 10 games for 3 hours or something like that, and they're competing today. And they could be Overwatch, it could be chess, it could be anything. Almost like Twitch Rivals. Like Twitch Rivals is pretty fun just overall. You get to see a lot of people, different games, stuff like that.
Different skill levels.
But I think it would be really, really interesting if we had like a King of Games type thing. And then I think that might be what esports needs.
And I think T-Pain agrees with you there. And T-Pain, if you're watching, we love what you're doing. Keep on doing it. But you might be onto something right there. And I think that's what T-Pain's Global Gaming League is trying to do. An entertainment league, perhaps. We'll see how that develops. We'll see what happens with Apex Legends and that pro scene. Maybe even see what these developers are going to do with these esports. Are taking them seriously, or are they just fodder for the fuel to just kind of get people riled up and talking about their game or not? I do believe the community has a lot to play in this, and that's why I do think, moving into our next topic, the race to world first WoW's Race to World First is one of the best esports out there. This is a community derived and created thing. Blizzard has never tried to like organize an official Race to World First. They never lead the thing. They've become a partner essentially of the process, but it's these organizations that are initially doing it for charity, trying to get that notoriety. And we were the first to do this. So we've got Race to World First, the Liberation of Undermine coming up tomorrow, March 4th, launching Mythic Week. Nick, I know you just said you renewed your subscription perhaps to WoW. Have you seen anything about this new raid, this goblin-centered city raid?
Nah, dude. No, I haven't seen anything about the goblins. Are we going to find out what's his face? The fat goblin is a dreadlord?
I don't know about Dreadlord, but he's definitely up to something. Hey, Billy here. Wanted to take a quick minute to let you know a few things. If you're enjoying the content so far, please consider liking and subscribing. It's free for you and it really helps us out. You can find the Esports Meta live every week on Twitch and YouTube. It's where we film the podcast, play games, hang out, and chat. If social media is more your vibe, check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, or Blue Sky. This is a video game community that's excited to talk about esports, so jump on in the conversation. Of course, you can find more content like this on YouTube. Just hit subscribe right here or here. Either way, we appreciate you being here, so thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, it's my favorite. That's my favorite thing that I hope happens is that we find out that the fat goblin is a dreadlord. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, Gallywix is the main antagonist of this patch 11.1 for The War Within. He is dominantly showing himself here in Undermine, the Goblin City, the mythical Goblin City. This is the last place that was on the original launch map that they finally made. We finally get to go check it out, and here we have the raid that's going to be experiencing it in full. Let's do this. Well, let's talk about the esport first and foremost. Of course, Race to World First is an organization-led event where teams of players come together to compete and try to finish the raid on the hardest difficulty as fast as possible. The first team to do so is crowned the winner. It's a little bit arbitrary, but like it is a lot of bragging rights. We come out of a raid where Team Liquid dominated in Neuro Palace. They're holding on to the championship currently, but the three main teams we're looking at today, expecting to compete, is Echo Esports, Team Liquid again. Let's bring them up, back in it for it, and Method. Method has in the past gone head to head with Team Liquid, and they're looking to fight back on this one to make sure they don't lose two in a row, essentially. This raid is, what's it called? It's expected to be a really interesting mechanical fight. So these teams are coming together to their respective locations. I believe Team Liquid's based out of California, and here Method is in EU. Nick, do you remember where Method is? I believe it's somewhere in Germany.
I don't, but that does sound right, to be honest. Yeah. I would probably bet on Germany.
They're like the esports organization over in the EU, and especially with WoW. It's cool to see how, like I said, this is not a Blizzard run tournament, but they do have a part in it because they do keep a close eye on the mechanics and how they're performing for glitches, as well as just the overall playability. These guys are essentially super stress testing it. But we have Team Echo, Team Liquid, and Method fighting here for our first place, which is going to kick off tomorrow in the Liberation of Undermine. Here's the raid schedule going on here. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right. Tomorrow, March 4th, is when we're going to see normal, heroic, and mythic difficulty of the raid launch officially. So everything's coming fast and furious, just like how the goblins like it. Raid Finder is going to be releasing slowly over the next few weeks for us slowbies, our casuals. But you can check out their streams and maybe be a part of some of the mythic Race the World first heroic runs, getting some loot, help them get some loot. And the one thing, the big note here too, is the story mode, Nick, is something new they added in the last patch for the last raid. You get to experience a little bit of the end of the raid by yourself as a solo player, just for like lore reasons. See if Gallywix is that Dreadlord when you renew your sub, essentially.
Nice. That's really nice for YouTube content creators.
No, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that one. So that's all kicking off next week with the Raid Finder mode. Tomorrow, Mythic difficulty is going to be starting. Heroic difficulty. It'll be interesting to see how fast these teams run through it, and if there's any sort of dark horses that are not expected from the top three: Method, Team Liquid, Echo. If they're going to be taking all the dubs on that first kill stuff. All right, moving down into actual list of boss. Here's the map for the experience. You're going to be essentially fighting all across Undermine, the city, the underground city of the goblins, making your way to the Galagio, Gallywix's underground casino that his seat of power is now in. Getting down here into the bosses. Here's a list of the bosses. We have a Vexy, Full Throttle, and the Gear Grinders, which I believe is a tank and motorcycle sort of fight. Cauldron of Carnage, which is a faux kaiju. Nick, I'm not sure if you've seen the preview stuff, but I'll show you in a second. It's a giant robot dinosaur versus a cyborg gorilla, giant cyborg gorilla battling, and somehow the raid has to push one to the other. Next up, we had Rick Reverb, then Styx Bunk Junker, Sprocket Monger Lockenstock, which is a lot of fun to say. Sprocket Monger Lockenstock, One Armed Bandit, Muggsy, which is a two-headed ogre as the heads of security for Gallywix, and then the Chrome King Gallywix. He's given up his seat of power in the Horde, and he's moved into more of a life of crime, which is pretty much what he was doing before. And now he's the last boss of this raid, working with Xalatath, the main antagonist of the overall raid. Nick, in the background here, I'm going to play a video from Automatic Jack, which is going to break down the fights. I'm not going to have the music on, the sound on, just so we can talk over as we talk about what we feel like the bosses are going to do as far as difficulty, what's going to be the boss that's going to be the hiccup, etc. here. So here's Automatic Jack's video in the background talking about the raid. There's the dinosaur from the Cauldron fighting the monkey in the liberation of Undermine. Nick, Gallywix you're familiar with. He's going to be driving that big mech floating bot stuff. Here we have like a Leviathan type fight from what was that? Ulduar. Ulduar was a difficult raid and had a cool pathing in the beginning. Do you see the goblins and Undermine doing something like that? Because it is essentially a siege raid where you are storming the city and then storming the casino on this.
No, I'm too. Dude, I had this weird thought pop into my head. Like, what was the third character in those Rampage games? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. There was the monkey and the T-Rex, and then what? The four-legged dinosaur?
No idea, but like that's all I thought was like, where is the the other one? Oh my god,
That's funny. Yeah,
this is gonna mess me up. Right? That's all. That's like a wolf. Was the wolf?
Oh yeah, it was the wolf. I'm thinking
where's the
of,
giant
I'm
wolf?
sorry.
Is there gonna be like a giant kaiju wolf?
Sorry, I was thinking of the fighting game from Sega Game Gear. Was it Maximum Carnage? No, it wasn't Maximum Carnage. It was. You remember the dinosaur fighting game?
No, I don't remember any dinosaur fighting game.
Yeah, okay. Rampage, yeah, where they turn into the giant werewolf and the dinosaur, the Godzilla and the monkey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then you just smash the buildings. I don't know.
Yep.
That's
There's definitely
cool,
some
though.
silly
Are
mechanics.
you gonna be able to bet on it?
That'd be interesting if it's between the fight. You have to pick a side and then kind of push it to happen, like almost like chess from Karazhan was.
But we probably can't, right? It's like something about like gambling and China or something. Like, it's like,
Perhaps.
I mean, I'm
This
serious.
game,
How, like, it's, anyway.
yeah, they just got on some decent terms with that distributor. Netty is essentially out there. But this raid is kind of looking to introduce some wacky mechanics. One of the bosses is a DJ at a party, and I haven't totally seen the full mechanics of that fight, but I know that like it's going to require like a different mindset. This the kaiju fight seems to be a like a not a council fight, but you have the two partners and you have to kind of split them and then fight them separately and then have them fight each other. Perhaps there they go, and yeah, so like there's gonna be I think a lot of interesting mechanics between like something like the DJ one. The previous boss where we saw the tank and the motorcycle gang, I believe you have to hijack the motorcycles from the motorcycle gang and then drive them into the tank to have them explode. So like little key things like that, is there going to be a good balance of like everything looking like visual clutter, visual craziness, or is it going to get, pretty clean as far as what you're supposed to do? I think that's always a big question
like
with these raids.
a DDR type game mode.
Perhaps
You got to jump
DJ.
to the left, jump to the right, go forward, back.
How funny would it be if they like
cool.
licensed the Cupid Shuffle or something, right? Hands on your knees.
That would be pretty ridiculous. A little hard to do right now, but
Right.
Cha-cha slide.
They're doing the cha-cha slide. There is a fight where you're in the garbage patch. Which one is it? This one. You're in the garbage patch, I believe, and you have to Katamari Damacy the boss at one point. So like somebody gets assigned some mechanic, and then you start collecting garbage on like a snowball underneath you, and you're running on top of it. You have to run around and collect a bunch of garbage, and you have to get it to be large enough to knock the boss over or through the shield or something. So again, they're taking a lot of interesting ideas and mechanics here. I'm not sure if it's this boss specifically, but like I do feel like with goblins, it's going to be a wacky mechanical raid, a lot of interesting vibes, a good narrative throw here. Everyone needs it. Yeah, a little bit DDR with the jumping, but that's not something we're unfamiliar with from Naru Palace, the last raid that they did in the last boss. Having the time to jump, perhaps.
Everything's basically a safety dance. Like, raids are tank and spanks or safety dances. That's pretty much like, or I guess also zerging it would be another one. Those are the three aspects of World of Warcraft raiding.
You're right. Yeah, here we have the garbage raid where you're Katamari Damacying it. A little bit of a buffer delay right now currently. Let me see if I can roll that back a little bit. But yeah, you're essentially Katamari Damacying a bunch of this garbage so that you can like get rid of bombs or hit the boss. Here they are pausing, explaining a little bit. But I do feel like this goblin raid, it's going to be interesting to see what comes through as like a difficult thing. I think there's only 6 or 7 bosses total. I would imagine they get through the first 2 or 3 pretty quickly within the first couple hours starting tomorrow. Nick, in that sort of way of like, okay, yeah, see how well they do. Which team do you think has the stronger sort of push? Echo is the dark horse of the top 3 because they've kind of fallen off, but they've had really strong matches or events where they haven't had the full power of the organization they used to. Liquid has been on a hot streak a bit, making moves, winning, and Method has lost the last raid, but might be, looking to eye back a comeback. Which of those top 3 do you think might, shot in the dark, gonna make some moves here on this raid? Is your boy Max got it in him this time?
Yeah, no, I rep Team Liquid all the way, bro. Everybody else straight trash. Absolute Saturday. Absolutely yesterday's paper. Okay, just a bunch of old news, right? It's all about Team Liquid.
I imagine
Got
too
me when I
that's
was
like
fucking
the
sneezing.
timed it
So
perfectly.
annoying.
Yes. Gotta make you look bad, man. That's my job, right? I imagine though,
I
yeah,
do that
Team
easily
Liquid.
enough.
I imagine that Team
Team
Liquid
Liquid's gonna
really,
do it.
right. But that's where I think Method is going to like light that fire under their ass and really push for this raid, because they're going to be coming in on the raid as like another reminder. The Race to World First not being an official thing, it has an unofficial start where it's basically when servers go up. North America servers reset and go up on Tuesdays, whereas EU servers and reset happens on Wednesdays. So Method and Echo playing in the EU have a somewhat bit of a disadvantage off the get-go, but they also have an advantage in seeing what strategies have been done. It might not be that much of an advantage off of the first couple bosses, but it is definitely something.
Huge advantage. Is you get to stay fresh. You get to run through bosses a little bit easier. Like you don't have to. You have to do it. And like imagine that you knew the answers to the first 10 questions of a test. Get the fuck out of here and don't make it that much easier.
But that's a thing where they couldn't overcome that gap that Team Liquid got in the last raid, right? Team Liquid got the first 3 or 4 down. They hit the first hurdle boss, the one that checked gear, essentially, that was a little bit impossible to do. And then just from that point, Team Liquid didn't give a fuck. They just kept on rolling. Echo couldn't break that. And you could see over time that mental exhaustion kind of run it. So having that advantage of information didn't totally pan out because they weren't able to execute. They caught up, but then for them to actually catch up, they need to go further, right? They actually have to go ahead, because when they go to sleep, Liquid's in the next day, they're already ahead of them again. So yeah, so it's a lot of
yeah, I mean, they get to it's really beneficial. It's a lot better than going in blind on everything. So I would rather see people that like not that I would really prefer to go second in that case, but like if you have to, at least you get the benefit of knowing all the information, like what pitfalls to just avoid in general, what team comps like work in general. You don't really have to waste that trial and error, and that's a little bit of gold here and there, just in general,
Yeah. I like the way you put that there too, because like a fighting game, if you and I were competing in Street Fighter or Tekken or Smash Bros, any fighting game, the standard practice is map ban, map pick, character pick, and then we back and forth it on that. So like going first might have an advantage, but then going second also has that advantage. It's just a matter of how you convert that, like kind of what you're saying. So I do like the way you're framing it too, because I hear it like a fighting game, which sounds cool. Team Echo and Method have that second fighting game, but they need to be able to convert that. So they need to have that bigger burst of a day, essentially, to get the lead. Whereas Team Liquid has a different sort of hurdle. They've got to overcome the knowledge gap, which isn't as big early, but then it definitely is later, where it's they can't give up secrets. They got to make moves and stay outpacing everybody else. I'm looking forward to this. This raid is looking really wacky. Here we have this boss where there's conveyor belts, explosions, fire, magnets. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. I heard myself for some reason. But it's going to be interesting to see how this works out with this boss. I believe that was the 4th or 5th boss, which is usually where we see the big wall interrupt everything and like stop and slow down these raiders overall. Race the World First is starting tomorrow, March 4th. You can check out their streams live on Twitch as well as YouTube, I believe. You can go be a part of the organization. They raise a lot of money for charity. They have a lot of fun working with each other, talking with casters, talking with people. They rate your transmog. So if you're into that, go check them out. Otherwise, it's always fun to see them do their safety dances from boss to boss to boss. Nick, any final thoughts before we move into our next topic?
Just that Liquid's going to win. I don't think it's even going to be a contest. Last time they let him have a little run, have a little fun. But I think it's game over for him. I think Liquid's just going to destroy everybody. Two boss lead for sure.
Yeah, let's see it happen. Let's see it go. I think it's about time we go and move into our next topic of the night here. We're not doing too bad for time. We got, an hour in. We got some stuff going on. We still have League of Legends to talk about. We still have Overwatch to talk about. In fact, we're going to be moving into Overwatch right now. We're going to be running over the scores for the regional playoffs in NA. Here we are. All right. This past weekend kicked off the playoffs. Let me get the screen correct now. There we are. This past weekend kicked off the playoffs for the OWCS. We saw Korea, EMEA, and North America all start fighting and facing off against each other for the teams that qualified and see who's going to turn out to be first place, second place, etc. for this playoff bracket. This, I believe, is also going to decide, I believe it's already been decided who's going to be going into their first international tournament in China coming up in a couple weeks. We'll go over those details at a later point, but for now, let's go over the scores of this past weekend. And it was much of the same that we're used to with some 3 Overwatch. It really does feel like this current state of Overwatch that the teams playing can't necessarily figure out. The winners are just winning and the losers are just losing. The teams that have figured it out and they continue. And maybe it's the players they have on the rosters. Maybe it's the decisions they're making, the coaching, the strategy, and the scrims, because we've seen some major meta shifts to make it happen. Whereas compared to some of these other teams, they just don't have the gusto, the flexibility, or just the step and pace to keep up in this shifting meta. This past week, we saw a huge meta shift as we went into the games. Space Station Gaming played Timeless in our upper bracket semifinal. Space Station was our number 1 seed, and they chose Timeless. They called them out and you ain't going further than here, boy. And they 3-0'd them. Next up, Nightmare faced off against Team Liquid. Another matchup that was chosen because Nightmare and Team Liquid, Nightmare didn't get to choose, but they've played each other just last week, and the results are much different. Nightmare was feeling pretty confident, but got shot down by Team Liquid. Team Liquid taking the win 3-1. That knocked their 2 teams down into the lower bracket. Timeless faced off against Avidity, and Nightmare faced off against Rad Esports. Timeless went straight for it with Avidity, not giving them a chance to make any sort of lower bracket run, winning 3-1. Timeless has really looked strong against the bottom half of the teams, but has struggled against the top half. Our final game for this last weekend was Nightmare versus Rad Esports. Nightmare getting knocked down to the bottom, but that's about as far as they've gotten knocked so far. They go up. They take the victory 3-0 against Rad Esports. We're looking forward to this next weekend of games as well for North America. Space Station is going to be playing against Team Liquid. We're going to finally see an actual battle of the top teams. These both have shown a lot of prowess. I think Nightmare is in there in that top 2, top 3 aspect as well. See if Team Liquid can continue the momentum from the coaching to take on the strongest looking team in North America, Space Station Gaming. Then in the lower bracket and seeing what's going to happen in the run here, Timeless versus Nightmare. Head to head. My bet's on Nightmare being the team that's going to really make the moves. Timeless has shown some weak strategy and inconsistent play, but Timeless also has the option to make it so this weekend. Nightmare has been a tough opponent and won't go easy on them, but we'll run through and see how that ends up going. I believe we're a little bit behind as far as delay, Nick. It's been a week of Overwatch, of course. Did you get a chance to check out any of the games? Are you looking forward to seeing what happens in the grand finals? Or are you just over this because we're past this Malga meta? We're moving into newer things.
Let's see. I didn't watch any of it. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Dead game. So I haven't really kept up with it. I've just been, I've been waiting for it to resuscitate. I'm going to play I promised you I will play my 10 provisional matches to see where I end up, just so that I could literally still speak on this game because of how much we don't think it's dead. I'm kidding.
That hurts my heart, man.
No, like I haven't been watching it, but I have played a little bit because I did tell you I was going to do the matches, and who knows, maybe I'll do my Marvel Rivals ranked matches so I could be ranked higher than you real quick, so I can rub that in your face because you're probably sitting there just going like, I throw fire, I'm Human Torch, I'm the best.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely going to be picking some Black Panther, going to the back line, some Psylocke, and just running down your games, making sure your healers, supports don't do shit. But I know you're rooting for Team Liquid in this one. They've got a good chance here. They've got a good shot going into the international tournament overall. They've making some waves. But I think the big story with Overwatch this past weekend, we could talk about the numbers in a second about the we could talk about the numbers of players on Steam in a second, as far as dead game goes, but I think that's the ups and downs we see with video games in general. But the story here right now is the meta shift. I'm going to bring us into our ban chart for this first week of playoffs here. And the biggest notable thing is we've seen a complete change. Utility and speed is back in for sure. Juno, Kiriko, Lucio being banned twice each. Ana getting banned 3 times, tied for most banned hero in North America. Malga also being top banned. We've seen this shift kind of happen suddenly. Last week might have indicated that last week was a lot of comfort picks. People weren't familiar with perks, haven't figured it out. But this week, and especially going into the playoffs, they did this hard pivot into this new sort of style of play that we're not familiar with currently. Malga is currently the top banned tank as well as the top banned hero. Winston is up there as number 2. Diva is a number 3. So we're looking at dive. Malga being an interesting ground-based dive. That speed from Juno and Lucio definitely making stuff happen. Kiriko cleansing him out, keeping people up, and Ana's just Ana. One of the interesting things I will note, and this is where I'm going to want your thoughts on it, basically, Nick, is that Pharah is one of our most banned DPS heroes. There was only 4 DPS heroes banned, whereas in previous weeks, including last week, Torbjorn was banned like 5-6 times. You had Tracer, Cassidy banned. Here we have Pharah, Genji, 1 on Tracer and 1 on Widowmaker. This is a drastically different thing. I can expect that Widowmaker bans that's been static through the year, where you're kind of just banning that one person who clicks heads too well. But what's your thoughts on Pharah here? A little bit of a stream delay, so let's see what you got to say.
Let's see. Probably like what were her perks again? Do you remember what her?
Yeah, the Conclave. What's it called? She can. Her ult can move. That was one of them, and then I believe she can recharge. She gets shield instead of HP. And then her concussive sucks people in rather than push people out. I think that's the 3 I remember.
Yeah, it sounds, she's just mowing people down. Just like high damage, that's AoE. And, and because of the way people are playing so close to the ground, I don't know, man. That's pretty much like what I would put for it, and this is based on pro play. So it's basically like the damage itself has to be something that's highly valued. That's where it is. Like what else does she have, right? Is like going to be the suck in, sure. The suck in's probably got to be good, but again, sucks in, but also does AoE damage, easier to aim, easier to deal more damage, and the movable ult seems cracked as fuck. If I were to, guess.
Yeah. And
just
I think
checking
part
out
of it too.
That Torb. Look at that. Like everybody's just off the Torb now. Ah, man. I wasn't, time will tell if that comp is actually good or not. The comp was shit. Didn't I say it?
The comp was good, man. It ran for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks uncontested. It's still solid. I think the shift just came. There's one thing to note. There's a player, Sugar Free, on Space Station Gaming. He did an interview after his win against Timeless, and they asked him about what was the shift? What did you see in scrims? When did you see people shift this? And he said the Koreans were doing this, so then everybody else started doing this, which kind of makes sense. The LCK is the main character over in League. It's the same thing over here in Overwatch. I wonder too with Farah, she's like a pouncy dive now with like the big cleave, burst cleave. So I wonder if it's like a cheeky sort of strategy, especially with the Malga, where you can do that combo where you can just like move in and pounce. And I wonder if like there's not a single Mercy ban this entire stage, this entire aspect of North America. So like they definitely feel like Farah is the threat. Like Farah is the one that's going to be causing problems. So like it's interesting because there's a lot from the Korean side perhaps that's influencing this. The speed dive, they're more divey over there, but the Malga makes sense and doesn't. The Farah was that outlier. I couldn't quite put my thumb on.
It could just be like the overall damage from the champions being put together is just too overwhelming for any healer setup in general, right? Like Magua does great damage, and Farah is going to do great damage, especially like in a time with like an ultimate, right? Like if you're pressing point, if it's really if it's a good opportunity for it, it's going to be a lot of damage overall. And like who else are they picking, right? Yeah.
Right. No, it's a fair point. They're definitely not picking Torb anymore. And I wonder like if he's just not cutting it for anti-dive, he became the dive target. So like they're just counting, or if it was just a speculative switch where they're going to compete against APAC region, then they need to play like APAC region. If it was just a coaching strategy that way, we'll see as it continues. I believe we've got the next round of games coming up this weekend, and we've got the international tournament coming up in the next couple weeks. Overall, Overwatch has been in an interesting spot. The meta has definitely been shifting. This was a very quick, drastic shift, but more or less, we've got something else to talk about with Overwatch, and that specifically is the Steam numbers. Mentioned and alluded to it before. Nick has been joking about it being, and he's kind of serious, has a dead game. I've seen some memes where dead game, not dead game. People are picking sides, of course, about this, that, and the other thing. Marvel Rivals is better. Overwatch is better. Back and forth. I'm in the camp of we can have two cakes. Let's eat them. Cheers to you, Flats, in that analogy. I think it makes perfect sense. But I think the one thing I want to highlight here is the numbers. We don't get to see numbers behind the scene on BattleNet and Blizzard. They do not disclose them. They kind of disclose an overall at the quarterlies for investors, but specifically we don't see game by game. We don't see breakdowns. We do have, though, access to Steam numbers and Steam chart. We went over some of the mixed reviews last week and saw how the game is kind of trending to a stabilized aspect, but specifically looking at the numbers for the game hours played and the players playing, player count overall. I think that's large enough. Yeah. So we have an all-time peak of 75,000 lifetime. Last 24 hour, the peak was at 28 and 24,000 people playing last 2 hours. We're looking at a chart from the last month breaking down, the highest being 55,000, and this was on patch day, highest player count. But we are seeing a slow trend up. I'm not going to sit there and tell you this is copium. I don't know if the overall trend, I don't believe the overall trend is doing good, because looking at, over the last year, it was 60,000. It had a steep drop by November, December, when Marvel Rivals started, and then has kind of continued in that trajectory since that point. We have seen a big spike up for the patch with the perks, and then we saw it kind of come back down, which isn't totally unusual and might be indicating that split. The people who are playing on Steam are going to be splitting their time in Marvel Rivals or Overwatch, or just picking one or the other, generally speaking. So the trend on the overall is still kind of looking in that downward spiral, but I do want to note the last month, it's on an upward sort of trajectory, not by much, but a little bit. And same with the 3 months. It's kind of a little U-shaped here, a very smooth U-shape here, except for that big spike on patch day. But we are seeing a bit of a higher average of numbers overall. Nick, I'm going to kind of stall for some time, so jump in when you can here. But what are your thoughts with that number in the charts here? Because I don't think it's totally indicative, but it is something for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. So you got more people coming back to your game, right? And now we have Marvel Rivals. Now we have Overwatch. and I don't want to say that like they're the same game, right? But like what's different about them as far as like hero shooters are concerned? Like I think Overwatch, like the picking talents mid thing is like it's a nice first step, but I think it's ultimately I think it's a little bit too small, too tiny. Like it has impact, but it doesn't really change pretty much. I don't want to say like you want to change the way you play, right? But you want to be different, right? So like Apex is like a battle royale hero shooter, right?
Yeah.
So like it changed from battle royale, like add the hero shooter in, right? Now we have 2 hero shooters. We're doing ult economy in both games. Where and I will say this, like I've had a more frustrating time realizing that like in Overwatch, the getting back to the action is just brutal. It's grueling and I hate it. And I think that like maybe there should be some sort of change between the two. They don't both have to adopt it, but I think there needs to be like different. They need to have separate the style a little bit more. Like right now, we just have like two hero shooters. That's cool, and they're getting people coming back with the talents. But dude, do something else to like separate yourself. Like in general, I don't think the talents are enough. I think they're just an accessory. It's not really changing your style. It's kind of like you just put on a watch. Rats.
Fair point with that. And it's kind of a good start, like you're saying. The perks are definitely a good start. It's still on the conservative side, but they've been cooking that longer than Marvel Rivals would have been known to them, at least on like a playable sort of sense. But yeah, the foot is on the gas now. Whether they like it or not, Marvel Rivals is going to be doing what Marvel Rivals does. Overwatch is going to be doing what Overwatch does. We've seen a lot of these other hero shooters kind of fall wayside. Even in the last year, stuff like Concord not even making it. Paladins having a decent run. Gigantic having a Phoenix Afterlife somehow, but then falling short again. Like, you're right. How do these games differentiate themselves from being themselves? And I think Marvel Rivals has it baked in. The thing that they've thought was going to make it fail is the thing that's possibly making it succeed with the hero fantasy. So it'll be interesting to see how Overwatch continues the perks on that way, but goes more dramatic. Perhaps is going more dramatic is necessary, is what I was going to say. I do like what the numbers are doing. I don't like where they are overall, but one step at a time. I wouldn't call it a dead game, but that a lot of this fight is about changing player sentiment. People called this a dead game a year ago, 2 years ago. The numbers did not indicate that, the peak on Steam was 60,000 a year ago, and the all-time peak was 75,000. So like they were pulling good numbers when people were saying a dead game. A broken clock's going to be right twice, of course. This, I hope, just isn't that case of that. And I do want to see the developers, like you said, Nick, make that definitive move on where it is. But in that, Nick, unless you have other thoughts, please interrupt me on this. I want to move into a developer's take because I think this might also kind of show of that player's indication, that movement, mindset, etc.
Go for it.
Okay. Wonderful. Disable. Perfect. There we go. Bring us into a developer's take. This was an AMA they had on Reddit this past Friday, I believe. And here is the blog post overall. They got to answer a ton of questions regarding perks, regarding the game in general. Alec Dawson, Custa, also now part of the game team, and I believe one other gentleman took to Reddit, and Kenny Hudson, senior producer Kenny Hudson, that's who it was, took to Reddit for this AMA, and they answered a lot of pretty interesting questions, goals, expectations for the future. They do seem to have the philosophy of going a bit harder, changing some things, maybe doing something some seasonal. But the one thing I wanted to note here specifically is that somebody asks about, somebody asks about the, where is it? give me a second to find this. I probably should have found this beforehand. They asked Alec Dawson about just how the perks have been going and counter swapping specifically. Scott. I'm going to control F this, try to find this a little bit smoother. There we go. Okay, so it wasn't Alec Dawson that answered it. It was Scott Kennedy, who is Custa, former pro player, then talent on the broadcast for Overwatch League, analysis, and broadcaster generally. The question was, do you view perks as a way to limit the counter picking and power spikes of certain heroes? If so, do you think they have shown early signs of achieving that? And what adjustments would you make going forward? Any examples of heroes you'd want to shore up in that respect? So this was something a lot of people have talked about. This is something we talked about specifically, that it felt like it gave more incentive for players not to counter swap, not to counter pick. Scott Costa goes into saying, we did want to add more friction to counter swapping, and we've seen that drop quite a bit since Season 15's launch. It's been some time before players settle on how much less they want to counter swap, but ranked role queue on PC, we've seen players swap 25% less and more at the highest ranks, Masters Plus. They swap even less. So generally speaking, it seems that perks have, at least for the start, slow down Counterwatch, slow down the idea of players having to think, oh, I need to rock to this scissors, to right. They're giving them options of different strategy to play in, and they're giving them something that they're losing if they do, not just ult charge, but the perk building here. Nick, this felt like a pretty big sort of, this felt like a really big number. What are your thoughts when you hear this, and like, especially in this little portal that we get behind the scenes of a statistic that they have like this?
All they're doing is just forcing players to feel bad. Like a lot of the perks in general. How do I put this? Like the reason why I said it's a nice like first step is like they're so basic that they feel like they're just part of the kit. And I don't think that like it doesn't really feel like good when you get them, but it does feel bad when you lose them. And that's not good design. And it's not really a good thing to brag about. Like, well, because it feels so bad to lose these things because they feel so normal for a lot of the kits, just in general, that I just don't think it's as valuable statistic as like they might think it is. Sure, it's like down for now.
Well, I'm seeing it as a valuable statistic overall, not necessarily they are, but I kind of do feel like, because like we've talked about like behaviors like this, even lane swapping in League and how that makes it for a bad experience and boring. That's player behavior. And how do you change a player behavior? Like League is testing out tech that actually is going to detect people lane swapping when they're not supposed to, or et cetera, right? Here, they've given a different sort of choice path where it's like, well, if you do choose to change and counter swap, then you're losing this. So I hear you on that. I do agree with that, but I think that's also fine in a vacuum. This is the context to the vacuum. So, I'm putting the value behind that. I think 25% is a huge number and more, especially for higher ranked players who they're making it work, making it happen.
So like we want to keep it in the game then. Like I just don't understand like even like thinking about like reducing it. Like if like either you see that it has a purpose, or you see that it creates poor play patterns and poor player behavior where if you want counter swapping to happen, yeah. If you don't want counter swapping to happen, guess what? Super simple.
Hero lock, yeah.
Yeah, it's super simple. Oh, but now you're taking more shit away from the player. Like, again, it's like like Blizzard is very reductive on like when they want you to do something. They're not holding your hand. They're fucking hitting you. Like it's really like what they're doing. There's no hand holding here. It's not nice. You're just losing stuff. Before it was just a little bit of ult charge for swapping, because like half the time the way the game plays out and the way everybody picks champions and stuff like that and heroes, and the way these hero shooters player behaviors end up happening of DPS players, this, that, and the third. Force like no swapping. People already don't swap, right? Like you got these Hanzos that like, oh man, they picked good champions against Hanzo. I'm still not swapping. There's just like a lot of little things like, so I just don't see the, like them bringing it up. I guess like the question itself of like, it should be more of like, do we want Counterwatch? Like, do you want to play that game? Is it actually crucial to the way the game plays out? Like currently it kind of is, but like all they're doing is making you feel bad for the thing that they kind of don't want you to do, but they want you to do it sometimes. Like only if you're really, really forced to do it because your team comp is so bad did you ever have to switch. And in that situation, guess what? It sucks even harder because not only are you losing so bad because your team comp sucks, now you're going to lose more stuff for swapping because guess what? That's what they put in there to stop people from counter swapping. Like, I just don't know. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. Either you want it or you don't. There's really no, like, it's just like lane swapping. There's no, oh, sometimes it's good. No, either it's bad all the time or it's good for the game. And if it's good for the game, you need to design other ways for the players to have more fun and actually have more agency.
But at that point too, we're talking about Marvel Rivals. We can do a 6 DPS comp, right? That's somewhere that Overwatch has been. We've been in those games where there's 1 Roadhog and 5 DPS, right? I'm just pretending I'm playing tank by playing Roadhog. I'm really just being a DPS flank hog. Anyway, I do feel like part of their design is to kind of, part of their design is to have countering be an option. But I do like you said, player behavior comes in. Players will iterate in their own unintended ways. I think it has been oppressive and how they think players have thought. So I do welcome this. I don't see this as necessarily a bad thing. I understand where you're coming from philosophically. I agree with it philosophically, but then I think we get into these practices and it just doesn't pan out because we want a competitive game. What's priority, competitive game or the choice of counter swapping or no counter swapping, right? And the same with League of Legends. We want the competitive game, that's paramount, but then we want lane swapping or no lane swapping. We want no hero, obviously no champions changing in that game. But then you have the pick ban stuff, and the pick ban is fairly complicated at points, especially when you get to the pro level. Fearless has kind of made it more complicated, but simpler in a way. So it's those little ripples and ridges are the thing that give the game texture. It's the old adage, of creativity shines through restriction, not through infinite possibility. So I welcome
they lean
this
into
idea.
The infinite possibility too much.
I might not disagree with you on that one, but that's why I kind of feel like having this imaginary stick, because all of it's imaginary. The meta is imaginary with sentiment. I think it ends up being kind of good because how else do you dictate this or that? The incentivization is there. I get to keep this talent. Tracer's double recall gets 3 more blinks. I get to keep that if I'm playing Tracer. Is also the positive part of the negative. I'm losing that if I switch to Torb. So when the rubber hits the road, how does it look? How does it feel? And yeah, philosophically, I agree, man, but it's tough. It's a tough sort of design question overall for what you want in your game.
I think it's tough because we're 14 years into this fucking game, and not to be really frustrated, but it's super tough because all this shit should have already been worked out. It should have already been worked out. One of the ideas that I have right now is that you're the only person who's hero locked is the tank. That's it. Now you guys have to play around your fucking tank. That changes that limits you a little bit. And again, having constraints is where creativity happens, right? So being able to do whatever the fuck you want tends to just be we're all going to do the thing that we think is the most powerful.
We're all going to be Spider-Man.
And we see being the most powerful. Yeah. And these would be the changes that I think that you should probably have. again, having a friction point of me losing something because like I have to switch to a healer that has more output because of like what my team is doing and everything like that. And I only get to do it after I already see them swap. So again, walking in Overwatch back to the fight and the action is just the most disgusting thing I could possibly do in a video game nowadays. Like it is. And again, this is a person who plays League of Legends. Like it's not that much to get back to the action. Get back to lane. It doesn't feel that bad because you get to see all the other action. You still get to see everything. So it doesn't feel bad, but it feels really bad in Overwatch. And I don't know.
Well, here's a forehead comment for you, Nick. Don't die, man. If you're in gray screen, you ain't playing the game. So you got to stop dying then if you're worried about walking back.
Bro, like playing Overwatch half the time, man, is really like playing like old school WoW, like classic WoW when it first released with just people who had feet for hands. Like it's real punishing at times, man. And again, like, someone dies and then guess what? Someone dies and then he's got to come like, again, no fault of my own. This guy's got 40 seconds before he comes back to the game. Like, Jesus Christ. And the games only last 50 seconds. Like, again, like, it's not that it's really like bad and you shouldn't be punished for dying, like a 15-second spawn timer, whatever. But then I spend 40 seconds getting back to the fight. That's a minute gone. And you're talking about like, we're not pros. The game isn't for pros. Like you're supposed to have a lot, like there's supposed to be more fun to it. But again, like the counter swapping always sucks. You can't really limit the characters themselves, right? You can't say, well, if they pick Malga, you can't play Malga with the way that like the game is right now. But I think like, I don't think hero locking supports would really change it doesn't really set your comp in stone. Hero locking DPS is kind of like interesting, but legitimately, I think hero locking a tank would be like the best thing for like you do pick and ban phase, you get 2 bans or whatever, and then hero lock a tank, and then like that's it, and like then you get to play around what the other guy's doing instead of like, let's play around what they're doing, and then let's flip a coin, hope chaos doesn't happen. Because chaos is great and it looks really, really great for everybody who's trying to view and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. It would make it easier for viewers and stuff like that. It's a good idea. It's better than what they got.
I don't know, man. Because at that point, too, blocking a tank just makes the tank experience worse, right? You happen to lock tank into a shitty situation.
Is shit already right now. That's why we're going to go back to 2 tanks soon. Like, don't even try that nonsense with me. Like in 5 months, we're gonna be back to 6. We're 100% gonna be going back, dude.
We're gonna gentlemen's bet this $1.
Yeah, we get $1, dude. Within the next year, this game is gonna be 6v6 again, guaranteed.
100% not
guaranteed.
And like those. And
the only time that they wouldn't do it is to be spiteful.
I don't believe it, man. I don't think that's the future of Overwatch. I think the format is irrelevant when it comes to 5v5 or 6v6. And I think they've got other things cooking in the background that would make it more like, I didn't see the perk thing necessarily coming the way it did, but we were talking about like doing that like passive or hero changes, those reworks. Stadium is looking pretty solid, and I think that might be the solid future for it. So I'm willing to take that bet within the next year.
Yeah, I mean, switching the game mode. No. So like this bet only exists if Overwatch 2 is Overwatch hero shooter 5v5 or 6v6. You don't get to win the bet if these assholes go to a different game. If they go like, oh, you know what, PvP's not really working out for us like this. Let's go to be Smite, but hero shooter style, just like Deadlock. You don't win the bet if they just abandon ship. All right.
But if they keep it 5v5,
so like either it's going to be a hero shooter. No, man. Again, no, you wouldn't win. That's not even the bet. It would have to be as it is right now, 5 or 6. You can't, if they jump ship again, I don't know. I
don't know, man.
Anyway,
you seem to be like kind of warm out of this bet, but let's warm out of this topic right now and move into our final topic for the evening. We'll be talking about League of Legends, just kind of wrapping up a little bit. Nick, you seem to talk a lot about this match this past weekend. We were really excited to let me know what was going on. I checked out the VOD a little bit, but what was it? Let me bring up the screen here. Hard to see, but in the final match of which one is this? The NLC. In the final match of the NLC, here, Los Ratones fought against Nord Esports in a 3-0 match, beating them pretty definitively. But Nick, you told me to check out this match out. This scoreline does not look like a very enticing game. What happened here, man?
Bro, I can't even see what you're seeing right now. Let me look at this.
It's just the
bro,
scoreline.
Like, this is what I said before. I don't know if you remember, right? I don't know. Like, no, I popped it out. I was looking at it. I don't know if you remember, weeks ago, maybe, when we were talking about it, like the biggest difference between like this group, this squad versus like other squads that exist right now. Like, they have extremely solid players, but the Baus played out of his fucking mind. Like, this kid played out of his mind, man. And like, the Baus is literally the person who was like borderline on meme territory at one point. Let me see if I can just send you this real quick.
Here he is on the roster too. Take a look at it while you find that link. Completely blacked out. This is a dark horse of dark horses, a villainous mastermind in the shadows here, apparently, according to Nick, just running the game, going crazy here. And the rest of the roster we're looking at.
And the first two games he devastated, man. The first two games were absolutely insane. I sent you the highlights thing. Like, there's so many. Everybody's got a better video. I'm not gonna waste time like cutting highlights and shit together. Like, the first two games are 100%, and not really 100%, but the Baus had way too many situations where they were just close calls, man. And
all right,
he came out on top. He was ahead. Like, if you look, what is it? Let me see.
Yeah, we have the highlights playing in the background round now. You
6 minutes in the video.
Times.
6 minutes in the video, he's just up a certain amount of goal. Like, there 25 minutes, he's literally 2.5K up on his laner, just in general. Like, he is absolutely just farming, getting gold. He's like number one for gold per 10. Like CS per 10. Like, he's very like in the league, he's doing. And the people that he's facing, like, the crazier part, right? The people that he's facing, they're not noobs, right?
Right.
Santorin's an ex-pro. Like, Santorin and the top laner are an ex-pro. Like, he is rookie, bro. Like, this is his rookie thing. He's only lost one game his whole professional time so far, which is like just a really funny stat of being known as the most killable king, Demon King, right? And it was just a really, really fun series, like watching these guys and then having them just like absolutely decimate was phenomenal. Like, absolutely phenomenal. He was up way too much gold. At 26 minutes, he was at, and remember, I said at 25 minutes, he was at 2.5, right?
Yeah.
At 26 minutes, at 27 minutes almost, he's at 5.5K up on his laner. Like, that's,
oof.
He's like,
How?
It's just, absolutely, it's just what he did, man. He just farms. Like, it's very calculated on a lot of the farms. Sometimes it's not.
The precision,
but some of these fights were,
it's incredible. For the precision for you to be that much up and have the timing and like just the, this game is just as much of a dance as WoW can be at times, right? But then you have to worry about the other teams jamming you up, etc. The PvE, PvP part of it. Yeah, man, that's wild to be that much up on gold. Here, Baus gets taken, gets jumped. The team almost comes in and rescued him, but man, like,
this is game 3. Game three was not the best showing for the Baus. And it, they've already had 2 games with two of his good champions. And in game 1, Nemesis also played one of his picks. So another pick that was like basically like taken out. He couldn't play that one in the game 3. So he went for AP Jax. AP Jax is not too great, but basically what he had to do in this part in game 3 was just eat it. He just had to try to be useful, and he just had to eat it. And that's basically like what happened. And it was awesome.
He ate it pretty well because the rest of his team cooked. I like that meme now where it's like, obviously everyone talks about cooking and whatnot. I like the reheating nachos. The team reheated his nachos. He made the nachos earlier in the game. The NordVPN seems to come at him in game 3, lock him down with the picks, lock him down with the strategy. And then the rest of Los Ratones, they just reheat his nachos. They reheat the boss's nachos and go to town. I'm going to keep saying that meme over and over again until you stop me, Nick.
That's fine. And again, like game 2, like game 1, he was at 27 minutes. He was up by like 5 to 6K. And they ended the second game within 26 minutes or something like that. And he was up by 7K. Like it's a disgusting amount when like items are worth 3,000 on average, right? Like 3,500, stuff like that, like a little bit cheaper sometimes. That's just items. That's 2 full items over a person. And he's playing like an AP tank. Like he plays very aggressive styles, and he also, it's just great. It's just absolutely great. It was an awesome series. It's been great to watch them win this, and they get to go to the EU Masters tournament. So, and then that's their next challenge, dude. Their anime arc is great. I hope that they like legitimately. I think that they should have like a manga or a manhwa or an anime, just like real quick, just like 5-minute shorts here and there. I think it would be awesome. They're really on a journey.
That's for sure. And the journey continues as they keep making moves here. It's still just blowing my mind. I'm not the most wrinkly brained when it comes to League of Legends, but knowing economy in that game, having that much of an advantage, you're diffing your counterpart on the lane. You're diffing the rest of the other team somehow, and like it's wild, man. So it's good to see this team making those moves, playing at that skill level on this high level of competition as well. They're not just playing some random college team or some group of friends. This is, like you said, pro play. So really interesting to see how they do in the European Masters. But we have to actually move into what's it called? A little bit more of information, League of Legends, because we've got the first stand tournament coming up, and we have a finalist roster of who's competing. They finished out the competition, and we know who's going to first stand. We already reported on 3 of these teams. We have the last 2 officially confirmed. So from LCP Split 1, the CTBSC Flying Oyster. Struggle with that one a little bit. They're going in from LCK Cup, Hanwha Life Esports, from LEC Winter Split, Carmine Corp, Team Liquid from the LTA Cross Conference, representing North America and South America, and then from the LPL Split 1, Top Esports coming in for the competition. This competition is starting next week, next Monday, the 10th, the round robin stage where everyone's going to be playing against each other. And then from there, they're going to be moving into the bracket stage by the weekend. Nick, Team Liquid all the way, or NA's just not going to get this done this time around?
Let's see. Let's just say we hope. We hope Team Liquid does great. I'm not going to be as confident as I am with the Race to World First at all. I think it's going to be a fun tournament. Like, this is going to be international. It should be fearless. Like, so we're going to have some fun games. So, let's see. Damn, dude, I've been yawning this whole entire time, man. I took like a 7-hour nap today. But yeah, no, we're going to see exactly how people perform and stuff like that. How fearless is on like the international stage is going to be fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
across the
and honestly, I
regions,
think they should bring special guests, the rat ones in.
At least get some Reckles in there for some color commentary. He's a fun one.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be pretty cool if we had special guests at these tournaments, just like randomly, just like viewer, like you could vote on lolesports.com when you log into your account. That'd be sick.
Maybe that's what that global gaming league's got to do, right? Like you get like an American Idol vote them in kind of mentality, or vote them out kind of stuff, like the voice of the singer, Masked Singer.
Nah, I think it's gonna be like Survivor. Like you just get voted out by your teammates.
Don't be a dick. So yeah, this tournament coming up, single match round robin, top team four teams. I'm getting dyslexic for a moment. Let me start again. Coming up for first stand starting on March 10th. It's a single round robin, single match for round robin. Every team's going to play each other once. Top 4 teams are going to advance into the knockout stage, the tournament bracket style. The last team is going to be eliminated, the 5th team. All the matches are going to be best of 3 using the Fearless Draft, and the tiebreakers are going to be head-to-head match records, win-loss percentages, etc., finalizing in a coin flip if it gets that far. Knockout stage is going to be next weekend, the 15th and the 16th. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. That's going to be sim elimination. No loser bracket here. All matches are going to be best of 5, making that Fearless Draft even more intense, more depthful, especially when it returns if it goes to a game 5. And then the winning region earns a second bye coming up in the mid-season invitational, which is going to be some big value overall for the competition, especially because that's going to be a pretty big prize pool. This one isn't too shabby in and of itself, by the way. Nick, first place taking $300,000, second place $225K, third, fourth $172, and fifth place $130,000. So definitely nothing to balk at. These are some serious prize pools for these top teams making it. Good to see, fun to see.
3 international tournaments per year.
Yeah, I was going to say,
good amount of money. And
this comes from like that international play specifically, or like the regional kind of like popularity?
100%, dude. Nobody's like, nah, we ain't coming to this. Like, if they were just like, hey, man, we'll give you like $30,000, Korea would have been like, yeah, no, thank you. No, but like Worlds is a good amount of money. It's not too great, but like it's a good amount of money, right? So if you say like first place gets 300,000, that's almost $1 million. Just from like winning first place, besides like, you know, your normal splits and stuff like that. That's a good amount of money. Unlike that Overwatch bullshit with $100,000 winning 4 goddamn fucking tournaments.
Yeah, you ain't
My
wrong.
bad. Overwatch got me teased today. Like absolutely Overwatch just pissing me off today. Just kidding. I'm just going off the handle.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, especially when they pull out some skin that's going to be funded, help fund the prize pool, but it's only 25% is only going to the teams. Like there's a lot to be desired when it comes to that from the esports. A lot we would like to see change, but looking forward to seeing what happens in Overwatch. And as that continues, looking forward to seeing what happens in League of Legends here. First stand coming up next week. We'll be broadcasting the podcast next week as the first games get played, or right after the first games get played from the time difference. You know, there's a lot of other stuff happening, but I think that's all we have for tonight and for today, this podcast. Nick, any final thoughts from the stuff we talked about, all the way from Pokemon Go being possibly sold for $3 billion into Apex Legends, struggling esports scene, and your potential vision for the future of esports, all the way to the more frustrating Overwatch stuff?
Here's a thought. Here's 100% a thought, right? Niantic or whatever, whatever you want to call them, right? They're selling this stuff. The biggest, ballsiest G move they possibly could do would make a POW World game afterwards.
A POW World AR game?
And just literally make a nice little AR game with POW World, just shooting up animals, catching them, and building a house in your neighborhood. And you can invade each other. Bro, I'd play that. That sounds way cooler than Pokemon Go. POW World, team up. That would be pretty sick. That'd be like a real funny thing.
Yeah, it would be really funny, but they might know a little bit more about the litigious side, how that's going on the negotiations, if it's getting any sort of deal beforehand, and if it's a good idea or not a good idea. Bro. Absolutely.
We don't.
100% with
we never side with Nintendo. Never side
Niantic
with
might see that
Nintendo.
$sign next to Nintendo and go, we'd rather not.
What are they going to get? Another property? They're not going to get another property from Nintendo.
No, man.
Like the only one that they could possibly get would be like Animal Crossing, like or something like that. There's no shot. Like Animal Crossing would just make their own game. That's how how Animal Crossing is. A lot of the IPs in general, like they were blessed to get Pokemon in general. All right.
No, we know.
So like,
no, we know what Niantic would do. They got that tech bro vibe, that Silicon Valley. We're gonna move into AI, and we're gonna do an AR mapping, AI self-driving car, or some bullshit that way. I'm probably half right on that one for the AR mapping aspect. They wouldn't pick up another IP. 3 of the 4 failed. Pokemon Go is the only one that was successful because of.
They're gonna use the Niantic data for robotic legs that would just like they'll walk for you. Instead of automatic cars, automatic legs. Get up and go whenever you need to. Thanks, Niantic. Yeah.
All right, man. I think we're getting a little wacky off that one, but you know, I'd love to see that little ATST walking around, kind of Wall-E style. But I think that wraps us up for today, man.
You said ATST?
ATST, Star Wars, man. Those walkers.
What the fuck did I just hear?
Come on, man. You're making me look bad.
An ad saint? I'm making you look bad?
Yeah. I swear it's a thing, man. I swear it's a thing. ATST, Star Wars.
Oh, you're talking about those things. All right. Yeah, no one knows the name of those things, man. Damn. Everybody at Star
I know
Wars,
the name
like,
of those. I geeked out a little too hard, man. AT-ATs are the big one. AT-STs are the small ones. And then they've got the smaller ones, the walkers, where people sit in them. So you get little robot legs that self-walk you, okay? I was trying to nerd the reference. So I'm sorry. Anyway, I think that should wrap us.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out. Let's see if we can go ruin your Marvel Rivals rank tonight a little bit. or just ruin mine. But either way, that's it for the Esports Meta. Thank you for joining us. If you have, if you liked what you're watching, check us out on YouTube, subscribe, hit all the internet buttons. It really helps us out and gets us to more people. Otherwise, you can check out our social media. We're everywhere that you are at the Esports
if you don't
Meta.
like it.
Only if you don't
like it or you don't like anything that I said. No. If you don't like anything that I've said or anything that we've done, just message Billy. He makes me do all of it. Mm-hmm. He's the reason why any of this happened.
100% scripted the entire time.
I didn't lie. I didn't lie. You're the reason why this happened. Not a lie. Anyway, let's get out of here.
Check us out at the social media, at the Esports Meta. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Esports Meta, and we'll see you next time.